Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is Voices. Voices is a program of the Communication Department of the Atlantic Caribbean Union. We represent the beautiful islands of Cayman, Turks and Caicos, and of course the Bahamas, where we have two conferences, the North and the South Bahamas Conference. We're delighted to bring you this very special show from your family from the Atlantic Caribbean Union. And today we have in studio our special guest, Pastor Leonardo Rahming. Pastor Rahming, welcome back to the program, sir.
It's a joy to be here, Pastor Clark. And it's a joy to be on Voices.
My, how time goes by so quickly.
Yes, Pastor Clark, time does fly. And we have been enjoying life. We have been moving through the territory, and we have been having our challenges, but God has been great to us as we continue to do the work of God.
And He has certainly been good to us.
Yes.
It is that season of the year where we talk about some of your responsibilities. But before I get into that, I just want to ask you, how are you doing? How's your family faring by the grace of God?
I am wonderful. And my family is doing excellent. We are having an awesome time in the Lord, in ministry and in working for Him. And things are just going well. I have no complaints, no reason to complain.
Since the last time we met, Pastor Rahming, there were a number of evangelistic efforts.
Yes.
And if I recall, you were one of the preachers in one of those.
That's correct. During the month of February, March of this year, I had the privilege of serving as the evangelist for the Encounter Jesus Gospel Family Health and Campaign. And it went very well. The Lord blessed. There were families that were changed and lives that came together, and the Lord really brought us together as a result of it, and I'm happy for what He did in that experience.
Okay, and permit me to ask, because everybody asks, I'm sure there were results as far as baptisms. You've indicated
Yes.
families also.
Yes.
How did the Lord bless as far as baptisms?
We had approximately 39 souls who were baptized in that crusade, and when we look at the entire campaign, that was an excellent result, especially for a family life campaign. We look at to see how couples came back together, and that was exciting just to see them coming together, being reunited, and getting a better understanding of how to live together as a family.
I want to commend you, because I had the privilege of visiting the campaign several times.
Yes.
And I just enjoyed the presentations, and God really worked, I thought, in a marvelous
Yes.
way as well.
Praise
What
God.
about your churches? How are they doing?
My churches are doing well. I have two churches, the Johnson Park and Gambia churches. Gambia is the baby church of the two.
Okay.
And the Gambia church is really thriving. We have approximately about 15 members, consistent members attending, about 30 members on the membership list, and it's really thriving. They're doing well. They're excited about the work. They're excited about ministry in the Gambia area, which is a very difficult area, but they're excited about it, and they're doing well. And we're just looking forward to what the Lord will do. At Johnson Park is a ball. We're having a wonderful experience there at Johnson Park Church. The elders, church membership, leadership, they're all working together, and it's exciting to see the life that is there at Johnson Park. So I'm just excited about ministry there also.
Beautiful. Gambia is one of those historic older communities in the Bahamas.
That's correct.
And I know it's a smaller community.
That's
and
correct.
the challenges must be
Yes.
incredible, as you've indicated. You know?
The challenges are great. The challenges are really great. But God has been giving us a breakthrough. In fact, they were a part of a recent crusade also. And two persons from the Gambia area were baptized in that crusade.
Beautiful.
And so that was tremendous. And we're reaching the people. The people are really into the church. Before, they would pass the church by and not enter the church doors, but now they are coming, they are visiting, they're receiving gifts from us, and they're excited about what we're doing there. And so we're having a wonderful time in the Lord.
Among the indicators that let us know that this is the last day in which we live, coming towards the end of time, are those indicators that we see people coming to the church visiting, sometimes by no invitation from any other human being per se, and they just want to get that closer walk with the Lord. They want to reconnect with the Bible. They remembered hearing about the Sabbath. They realize that their body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. Are you experiencing any of that? Are you seeing those?
We're experiencing that in Gambia in particular. I mean, one just to give you an example, I was there about 2 weeks ago, just to preach and to be there with the brethren. And there was a lady, she is a member of one of the churches there in the area. And she came and she just worshiped with us on Sabbath. And she said she was so blessed just to be there. And that was not her first time coming. But we have not been inviting her. She just came of her own volition. And so it's a joy to see people coming in and experiencing the abundant blessings of God. All right?
We see that. And I just want to alert our viewing audience to the fact that more and more things like this will happen. At the Union headquarters, we're not opened normally on a Friday.
That's right.
But this past Friday, we were here, and somebody called, and they called on behalf of their mom. And the mother is not a member of the Adventist family, but the mother had a birthday wish. And her birthday wish was to attend an Adventist church on a Sabbath. We thought that was so beautiful.
Awesome.
And I just want God's people to be aware that as time advances and progresses, God is going to be preparing and opening doors for his people, and we've got to be ready to receive them. Pastor Rahming, we turn the corner. You work also at the Union office, and so you've got a double blessing. And in that second portion of the double blessing, you've got two responsibilities. One is Sabbath school, and one is ADRA. Let's talk briefly about Sabbath school, first of all. Tell us what is on the horizon. What is it all about in Sabbath school, as far as you can see it?
Sabbath school is growing and maturing, and I think that a new leaf is turning over in the Sabbath school department. We have had a number of our brethren who have been engaged and enthused about the whole Sabbath school department, and that's around the Union in its entirety. We have been doing a lot of training. We have already been to the North Bahamas. We've been to Cayman. We've been to the South. We have to go now to Turks, which will be later on this year. And one of the exciting things about it is that when we look at it is that the training is new. Not that we haven't trained before, but the material that we're using is just new material. Just came up about by the Herbert Fletcher University, and a lot of the information that we're sharing with the brethren, it has reinvigorated them. They have discovered new, almost, I wouldn't say new light, but they have discovered newer things. And as a result of that, the Sabbath school in most of our territories are growing, and it's becoming better because the superintendents are now trained. They are constantly being trained, and the teachers are even being trained. And it's bringing new life to the Sabbath school department of our union.
That's a good word, I think, for everybody. Because, we can count the churches we used to say where the difference between Sabbath school and divine service. And you don't have the same attendance as yet across the board. But certainly, as you've indicated, there is a turning of the leaf, so to speak. And I just want to commend you. We want to commend those hardworking teachers that brings new life to it. We want to commend the Sabbath school superintendents. And all of those folk who realize the benefit of just coming to church early.
Just to give you an example, we had a training in South Bahamas Conference about 3 or 4 months ago, and we had over 100 persons attending this training. And some of the remarks that you were hearing from them was that they thoroughly enjoyed it. It was led out by Pastor Samuel Telemack, our Inter-American Division Sabbath School Director, and they really enjoyed it. They really enjoyed it. When we went to Cayman, we had over 60 persons attending, and as a result of that, we had over 100 persons signed up for the advanced online learning, which was excellent.
Beautiful. Our Haitian brethren have always embraced Sabbath school. It looks like they know the joy of being early at Sabbath school, And if you don't get to one of those churches early, you will not get a seat.
That's
Isn't
right.
that so?
That's correct.
And Johnson Park has something that I love in Sabbath school. There are persons who go there just to participate in lesson study. They're there.
That's right.
And they recognize, I think, Pastor Rahming, that you get to talk back at Sabbath school.
That's right. That's
but
correct.
when you have the divine service, there's the preaching going on, and what happens?
Yes.
You only get to say
no talk back.
amen. There's
That's
no
correct.
talk back.
That's
and
correct.
that allows a lot of growth to take place in the Sabbath school. So I want to salute churches like Johnson Park and others. I'm sure they're not the only ones.
And I'll tell you, one of the things that we're seeing even in our Sabbath school departments is that as a result of the new life that is being brought to the Sabbath school department, we're seeing that the evangelistic fever is growing in our Sabbath school units. Okay, I can tell you, for example, at Johnson Park, and I'm just using this example because this is where I am at, that one of the things that every single Sabbath, we have one of the Sabbath school units, they have groups of students that go out from their class and they distribute 25 loaves of bread in the community every single Sabbath.
Wow.
Okay, and so that's just to give you an idea of what is happening in our area, and that's not just at Johnson Park. That is happening in a number of other churches. So the evangelism fever has been reignited, and things are happening as a result of that.
Beautiful. And I think that you ought to be commended, and it's where it's a real ministry.
Yes.
It's where the rubber meets the road, we say, okay?
Yes.
I want to begin this next phase with you. We talk about your other assignment, and we just want to introduce it before we take our break, right? We said ADRA.
Yes.
What does ADRA stand for?
When we talk about ADRA, Pastor Clark, we talk about the Adventist Development Relief Agency. And it's really a humanitarian organization that it's a humanitarian organization of the Seventh Adventist Church that caters to the needs of people. We cater to the humanitarian needs, but we also try to develop people and communities. And so as a result of that, this is a worldwide organization that seems to, that tries to help people to become better than where they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is an organization that is it private? Is it public? What is it? How does the church embrace it?
The church embraces it because it's a private-public organization, in other words. It is owned by the church, but the funds that come to the organization are private funds. So, in other words, you would have governments of the world, governments like in Geneva, Europe, France, Italy, Africa, Colombia. They would give funds to ADRA in order to help ADRA survive and do well.
Okay.
So in terms of so that's where the private aspect comes into it. But in terms of the public aspect comes in, sorry. But when it comes to the private aspect, it's the church-owned organization.
Beautiful. And it helps to meet that need, isn't that so?
Correct.
Now, it's sometimes seasonal. Well, we see it as that in the Bahamas and in our territory because we think of ADRA most times when we are coming to this period in the summer.
That's correct.
But it's not necessarily just then.
No. ADRA works year-round because there are always things that are happening year-round. And so ADRA tries to meet the needs of people wherever they are, wherever there is a need, a humanitarian need. For instance, if you have a group, it would not work on a personal level because when you look at personal level, you're looking at community services. Yes. But at the union level and the division level, and we're looking at ADRA, we try to meet community-oriented needs. So, for instance, if you have in a country like Haiti where you have no proper running water, okay, you would have ADRA go into this area and try to supply this entire community with running water. Once we can get a proposal and we can meet those needs, we would try to make sure that they have running water so that people can have running water to drink.
Okay.
Okay, and that's what we do.
Beautiful. I want to pause here because there's so much more to it,
Yes.
but I realize the timing. So we're going to take a break. We'll be right back when we will talk more about this dynamic agency called ADRA with Pastor Leonardo Rahming.
It is that time again. What time, you ask? Symposium 2017. Every year, the Atlantic Caribbean Union sponsors Symposium Time. It's a time of refreshing, it's a time of sharing, it's a time of recognizing individuals for what they would have done for the Lord Jesus Christ. So join us Wednesday, May 31st at the Hillview Church at 7 p.m. See you there.
Welcome back. I'm Eric D. Clark. You're watching Voices, and we have in studio Pastor Leonardo Rahming, who is the director of Sabbath School and ADRA for the Atlantic Caribbean Union of Seventh-day Adventists. Pastor Rahming, it's always a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to be back here.
We've been talking about this area of ADRA, and we recognize that there are a number of our viewers on a regular basis who are not members of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Let's go again. What does ADRA stand for?
ADRA stands for the Adventist Development Relief Agency. And as again, it is a humanitarian agency that caters to the wider population. And I want to let our viewing audience know that this agency is a worldwide agency. We cater to people regardless of race, religion, culture. It doesn't matter who you are or what you believe. We will help you because it is for everyone.
Beautiful. Let me take you this way, Pastor Rahming. You have the church, you have the conference, you have the union, and then you've got community services and ADRA.
Yes.
How do you weave through that to create a relationship? How do they work in tandem with each other?
We work through, because we are at the union level, we work through our conferences. And our conferences would have what is called community services directors. And those community services directors are the ones who will help us to mobilize volunteers, to mobilize individuals who will assist us to do the work that we have to do. Okay. As you are aware, or our viewing audience may not be aware, we are a very small agency in this part of the world. Okay. But when it comes to the larger world, we are large in that area.
Okay.
Okay. So we have to use our conferences to help mobilize volunteers to assist us in that regard.
So community services then deals with the membership and the smaller needs of the church.
Correct.
Do I hear you say that?
That's correct.
Okay.
So when you come to community services, for instance, let's say that today I have lost my job and I can't pay my rent. I can go and see my community services director, and if possible, they will see if they can assist me some way or another. Okay. Okay. Or if my light is off, I can see someone and they will assist me in that regards. ADRA does not do that. Okay. Okay. However, if you have a community that is experiencing a challenge, okay, the community, ADRA will get involved and assist that community. For instance, if there is no running water and the government can't supply running water to that area, ADRA would come in and see if we can put mobile areas to get running water so that this community can get water or the country can get water. Okay? If we have like a group, a large group of persons who are more or less, for lack of a better description, illiterate, we would come in and we would help. We would probably start like a reading program to help them to become more literate. Okay. If we have, so just to increase and develop the human aspect of our world. The reality is that the human element in our world is very vitally important. Yes. Okay? Yes. And if you can develop human beings, much more will happen. Okay, so that's what ADRA is all about.
At the top of the program, we talked about seasonal areas, right? Is there one area that is more active for you as far as ADRA is concerned?
Yes, when it comes to ADRA, especially we who are in the Atlantic Caribbean Union, we have what is called, we're right in the hurricane belt. Okay. Okay? In other words, every single year, we know that we're going to experience one or two major hurricanes in this territory. And that's, when I talk about the territory, I'm talking about Turks and Caicos, Cayman, Grand Bahama area, and also the New Providence area. The Bahama Islands, the chain of Bahamas Island. So we'll experience some kind of disaster in that regards. And as a result of that, we have to be prepared.
Yes.
From June 1 every year until November 30th, it is actually what we call the hurricane season. Okay? And so because ADRA is there, we have to be vitally prepared to assist those who will be challenged during this time. If you recall, last year we had Hurricane Matthew, okay, and the year before we had Hurricane Joaquin.
Yes.
Okay, so that was a challenge for us, and so ADRA played a vital role in both of those hurricanes, assisting persons in the community, assisting persons in these countries that were affected by them. And so again, we are anticipating that we're going to have hurricanes that will affect our islands again.
Okay. Now, the old adage says no man is an island, right? What can the churches do to assist ADRA? What kind of personnel, what would you want from the churches?
One of the things that we are looking for from our churches is that we want to see that our churches do not take anything by chance. Okay? In other words, our churches are prepared for what is going to come. Okay? The reality is, as I said earlier, we know that every year we're going to experience one or two major disasters. Okay? So that means that we have to prepare for them when it's to come. Okay? And I want to talk about that a little bit because we need volunteers who are going to assist us from our churches to help us prepare for what is going to come. I always believe that preparation comes before possession. In other words, you have to prepare for whatever is to come so that when it happens, you are well able to meet the challenge that comes your way.
Okay.
And I think that in terms of us knowing that these disasters will come, we need to start preparing from now. This is actually May.
Yes.
And the 1st of June is about a week or two away. Okay, so that means we have to be prepared for that.
Okay, so you want our churches to be able to volunteer?
Yes.
You want them to be able to register, sign up?
Our churches ought to have, each church ought to have a community services director in our territory. Besides that, they ought to be able to have a team of persons who will know the church in and out, who will understand exactly where all of the exit points are, who will know exactly what is the plan for getting out of the church if there is a need to get out of that church. They ought to know everything about the church. They ought to do a survey of the church to know what equipment are in the church, what equipment they don't have in the church. They need to be able to know exactly what belongs to the church in its entirety.
Yes.
Okay? And these things are so vitally important because if you don't know these things in advance, when the hurricane comes or whatever disaster comes, you're going to be in problems scrambling, trying to find out what's going on. You ought to have a team of persons working with you. Okay? And so it's vitally important that we be prepared in this kind of way.
Beautiful. Now, that's one prong of it, deals with the church.
Yes.
Physically, etc. What about personnel, people, where they live? What about members? What about non-members? What would you say to them in terms of disaster preparedness?
That is where the church again comes in, and this is also a means of evangelism. Okay? The church ought to know where all of their members are. Okay? They need to know what is going on with the membership. And they ought to know what are the needs of the members. So in case something happens, especially our elderly, our seniors in our churches, our disabled persons or challenged persons, those with special needs, we ought to look for them first. And we ought to know where they are. We ought to have teams set up in case something happens. Who is going to go to this place? Who is going to go to that place? We ought to have all of this written down on black and white. Beautiful. So that we can know, and it ought to be shared with the church. By now, each of our churches should have gone through a fire drill. Each of our churches in our territory. They should have gone through a fire drill on a Sabbath morning, 11 a.m. or 11:30 a.m., just so that they can know what is going on, how to exit properly, who is going to spearhead that, who is going to be the fire marshal, who is going to be the special, the person who's going to challenge that. And so they should know these things in advance. We don't want them to wait until June come. in order to start scrambling and finding out these things.
Okay.
And so this is all a part of preparedness and being prepared for what is going to come. Now we know that when it comes to hurricanes, as we said earlier, this is something that we experience frequently. Okay, so a person is going to be challenged because most persons are going to have water damage.
Yes.
Some persons may lose their homes. We have to again identify homes where persons can come, or even work with our social services department and of the government in our various areas to try to find accommodations for persons. If they're living in low-lying areas, we have to find out where they're going to go when there's a hurricane, if needs be. If clothes need to be put aside, we need to put clothing aside so that people can have clothing to wear. Food and all of your emergency equipment need to be stored in a certain way. You need to have all of your documents secured, your passport, national insurance, your driver's license. These should be in plastic bags, sealed properly, and they are to be stored in a proper place so that if a hurricane comes, it will not damage your documents. You would have all of these in a safe, secured place.
That sounds extensive.
Extensive.
It is, right?
Yeah.
Can we get this? Would you prepare this in black and white for the persons who view a program like this, whether
Yes.
it's just the members, the community individuals, just so that they can have some of this powerful information that you're sharing?
We will do that. We will do that. We have just to let you know that we have 4 very capable persons who have been trained early this year, and they will be spearheading the training in terms of hurricane preparedness around the territory. We have Brother Derek Tibbetts from the Cayman Islands. We have Pastor Wilson Isnod from the North Bahamas Conference. We have Brother Derek Tibbetts from the Cayman Islands Conference. And we have Sister Almartha Thomas from the Turks and Caicos Islands Mission. And so they, along with myself, were trained early this year. And so we are looking forward to sharing that training with the wider constituency, because we want the entire constituency to know how to be prepared for what is to come. And so all of this is going to be given to them so that the whole constituency will be prepared for what is happening.
I think that's so important, and I appreciate you saying that. You mentioned also a fire drill in a church on a Sabbath morning, and for
Yes.
those who go to church on Sunday, maybe on a Sunday
Yes.
morning. We don't hear about things like that to that extent.
You see, we have to do those kinds of drills when the people are there.
Okay.
And most times we worship because we worship on a Sabbath morning. That's when the majority of the people are there. And that's when you have a lot of chaos. Because if you're going to, if a fire comes in your church at that time, or let's say a hurricane comes in whilst you're sitting in church, how do you deal with it? How do you file out of the church properly? Where is the meeting place? Okay? Who is in charge? Who will give the instructions? All of these things have to be stated, because if it's not stated, people are going to be confused. You're going to have people going in every direction, and then some person may even lose their lives.
Yes.
And so we have to be very careful. We have to do the training. We have to ensure that we take as minimum risk as possible, because we don't want people losing their lives.
Beautiful.
And we don't want anybody to be hurt.
And the same thing would apply for the homes,
Yes.
the individuals. So a fire, what is that, a smoke?
Smoke detector.
Yes, those
That
are all-
ought to be in every home. Simple things like that. We ought to be able to know the exit and entrance point. We ought to know where everything is. Especially those of us who are on medicine and taking medication, we ought to make sure that our medication is in the right place, that we know where to find it. Those who wear glasses, they must have an extra pair of glasses to ensure, if one gets lost, they know where the other one is. All of these things are vitally important. Sometimes we take it for granted, thinking that we are well versed in being prepared. And when we do have disaster, we find ourselves fumbling all about the place.
Pastor Rahming, as we bring the program to a close, What about those persons we refer to as disabled and the ramp, emergencies, disaster preparedness? What do you say to them?
We say to them that the church is there to meet their needs. We have to assist them in any way possible that we can, but the church must always be friendly to those who have special needs. We must never neglect those who are challenged in any way. And so, especially during this time of the year, we ought to look out for those persons because they're going to need our attention. And so I say to the church, the wider church, handle them with kid gloves. Okay. Use some TLC.
Okay.
And ensure that they are taken care of.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. This is Voices. We've been listening to the voice of experience and know-how, Pastor Leonardo Rahming. He's trained in the area. He serves as the ADRA Director and the Sabbath School Director for the Atlantic Caribbean Union of Seventh-day Adventists. You've been watching Voices. I'm Eric D. Clark. We want to remind you that in just a few days, actually on the last day of this month, the 31st of May, we will celebrate our symposium as a union. And that's a time when our leadership from our territories, for example, the Cayman Islands, the Turks and Caicos, the North Bahamas, and the South Bahamas. They'll come together. They will share their reports with the congregation. They will motivate, and we will all be blessed in a very special way. That service takes place at the Hillview Church, located on the top of the hill, Tonic Williams Darling Highway, right upstairs of the conference office. Please don't miss it. 7 o'clock, Wednesday, the 31st of May. Until next time, I'm Eric D. Clark, praying that God continues to hold you and I in His powerful hands.
It is that time again. What time, you ask? Symposium 2017. Every year, the Atlantic Caribbean Union sponsors Symposium Time. It's a time of refreshing, it's a time of sharing, it's a time of recognizing individuals for what they would have done for the Lord Jesus Christ. So join us Wednesday, May 31st at the Hillview Church at 7 p.m. See you there.